Hi. Let's talk today about Jesus' very first miracle. Jesus turned water into wine. How did he do it? How did he bring it about? This was clearly one of those gifts of the Holy Spirit called the working of miracles. How did he work this miracle to change one thing into another thing? Now, in John chapter 2, you can read this on your own. I don't have time to read all of it, but I want to encourage you to read it. But it says that there was a wedding in Canaan, and Jesus' mother and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And on the third day of the wedding, these Old Testament weddings or weddings of Jewish tradition, they usually lasted 7 days. They were a 7 day feast or a seven day celebration. A lot of events taking place. But on the third day, it was reported that they wanted wine. There was a lack of wine. They'd have gone through the supply of wine. And so Jesus' mother looked to Jesus and said, Jesus, they need wine. And she looked at him expecting for him to do it. She must have known that he was able to do this thing. Now, this is the very first miracle of Jesus, and it was in the very beginning of his ministry. He hadn't really gone preaching too much. He just stepped out in faith, quit his job, had his disciples quitting their jobs, and he's just beginning his ministry. And these people are stepping out and promised by God that God would supply their needs. How is he going to supply their needs? But by supernatural degree. So as this is presented to him, his mother looks to him and says, they need wine. And he says, woman, what do I have to do with you? It's not my time yet. And then she just ignored him, like a good mother would do sometimes with her children. She just ignored him and looked at the servants and said, whatever he says to do, do it. Now, I like that phrase. Whatever he says to do, do it. Here was the mother, Jesus. Not only did Jesus know how to work miracles, as he did, and he knew the laws and the principles that God had ordained because he was so observant in his understanding of the things of God. Deuteronomy 28, under the law of Moses, they were commanded, hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, and observe to do all that he speaks unto you, and you'll be blessed. You'll be successful in everything that you do. There's no doubt in my mind that Jesus was successful in everything he did because he observed everything. He understood more. I think Jesus was clearly brighter and smarter than Albert Einstein or any scientist that's ever been known to this world, or theologian or brainiac in this world. Jesus understood the laws of this world. He understood the principles on this earth and in the heavens as well. And Jesus' mother knew it. So she looked to the servants and said, whatever he says, do it. She knew that miracles and the working of miracles, and listen to me carefully, the working of miracles has an operation of at least two things right here that you should be able to pick up on. What you say and what you do. Now, I don't have enough time to deal with that, but she said, whatever he says to do, do it. So there were 6 water pots filled water made of stone, and for the purifying. And he says, fill them up with water. So they filled them up to the brim. Then he says, go and draw it out to the governor. And so they carried those 6 water pots to the governor. One of the guests right there was a well-to-do leader in society of that community, and the governor, and they poured it out, and when they poured it out, the water was changed into wine. The man was amazed, and he said, boy, whenever anybody has a celebration like this, they put out the good wine first, and then while people are getting a little bit tipsy, they put out the old wine or the bad wine, but because so they wouldn't know the difference. And then this governor says, but you have put and saved the best wine for last. It was such good wine. Now the people didn't know how it had turned into wine, or that it even had turned into wine, but the servants that had obeyed God, had heard his instructions, listened to what he said to do, and did what he said. He simply said 2 things: fill the pots, and then later pour them out. They filled the pots, they did what he said, they did it, they were doers, and secondly, he told them to draw it out, and they drew it out, and when they drew it out, it was wine. Now, I just want to make this comment here. In verse 11 it says, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory. And his disciples believed on him. This was the first miracle. But I want you to notice what it's called here. A manifestation of God's glory. Now think about that in regards to some of the other miracles that we have in the Bible. Think about that, for instance, in regards to the resurrection of the dead. The great change from dead to life. There was an explosion that took place, a bright light. Think about that. You have a great day. God bless you.